Who knows what Jay-Z, J.K. Rowling, Bill Gates and Oprah Winfrey all have in common? Okay, I will tell you then. They have all overcome failure in one shape or form to go on to gain success in their respective careers. Welcome to My Perfect Failure. Join us as we delve into the world of our perfect failures. We will interview, explore, and discuss how our perfect failures can lead us to success. Join us and tune in.
Welcome everybody to another episode of My Perfect Failure. Today I'm super excited because I have another amazing guest for you. So my guest today writes books about joy and love that have today sold over 9 million copies. She's the host of the Do Joy podcast, and her newest book, Free Your Joy, represents the culmination of the magic she spread for 2 decades through her online joy school at lisamccourt.com. So a very, 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 very warm welcome to My Perfect Failure, Lisa McCourt. How are you, Lisa?
You, Paul. I am wonderful. How are you today?
I'm wonderful, but I'm even more wonderful now because I said to you before we hit the record button, as soon as I started talking to you, my energy rose. My energy rose. Smiling energy rose. So yeah, so clearly joy, it lives and runs through you, through the ether.
Oh, I love that. That's very sweet. I'm happy that you're feeling joyful.
Well, I'm happy as well. I'm happy as well. The more joy I have, the better. Not just for me, but anybody that comes into my being. So yes, I'm really excited to cover this subject. I don't think I've ever spoken about joy on My Perfect Failure, which when I say that, it seems a little bit silly that I haven't, but yeah, I've never really covered joy, and I've definitely want to know. I'm intrigued to know more about joy, and hopefully everybody that listens to this is in the same camp as me and wants to know how we can enrich our lives with joy. So just for everybody listening, the title of this particular episode is Finding Joy in Daily Living, which, yeah, to me sounds pretty cool. You know, I said to you from a selfish perspective, if I can find joy in daily living, that would be amazing. I definitely want some of that. So, but just to get started, what would be lovely is to capture a bit of you, your background, how I guess joy and purpose came into your life.
Oh yeah, for sure. I was joy challenged, Paul, for sure. And it didn't look that way. I was really, really, really good at playing the part and having the smile on my face because I wanted everybody else to feel comfortable around me. And so many of my joy schoolers identify with this paradigm of just having come up into this world, being raised, believing that I have to do everything I can to be pleasing to people. I have to do everything I can to make other people happy. This is the only way I'm going to get any acceptance or I'm going to get any love. So just, you know, if you're wanting to start in that personal level, that was very much my trajectory, was that I call it the water we swim in. We all go on to create a life and attract circumstances based on a framework that we develop very, very early in life. And it's when we first arrive here and we're hungry to know, how is it here? What are the rules? What are the definitions of things? And based on our caregivers and our community and sometimes religion or our schools, we get definitions for love, for power, for money, for my place in it all. And based on that framework, we go on to create a life. And for many of us, that is not a framework that's conducive to living the full, rich, meaningful existence that I have come to know and understand we are all meant to be living here in this time and place. In Joy School, we call it the joy set point. All of us learned very, very early in life how much joy and happiness we are meant to experience. It's what we subconsciously believe we deserve to experience. And we're all going to default to that joy set point, even though we'll have days that it feels bumped up, or weeks or months, or sometimes even years, and then other days or weeks or months that it dips down below that set point. For the most part, there's going to be a consistent line, and that's where we are going to default to as our level of joy and happiness, whatever we decided really early on is right for us, and that feels familiar to us. So it takes a lot of application of some understandings and different kinds of tools and frameworks to sustainably elevate that set point so that your day-to-day existence does become noticeably, substantially more sustainably joyful.
Well, I love that. The idea of joy set points, that I've never heard of that term before, but that really resonates because I think it's very common. Even if I think of use myself as an example, you kind of almost think that you hit a ceiling. Okay, today's been, I had a good morning, or I've had a good hour, something nice happened, so that's a good day. I can't expect anything beyond that. And you kind of really don't, I guess in my case, I don't really look for it after I've had that little modicum of joy, happiness. I love that analogy. And just going back to you a little bit, so you were showing up for other people, making sure that they were happy, they had joy, everything was good in their world. But were you feeling like a disconnect for you?
It became so natural that it took me a long time to really understand. I say often in Joy School that our weakness that we want to overcome is usually the flip side coin of our strength or our greatness or what we're here to express. And, if you want to talk about perfect failure, that was the failure that I recognized and realized in myself early in my adulthood when I started being really serious about this work, is that, I'm such a horrible people pleaser. I'm just a doormat. I let people walk all over me. I'm so easy to manipulate. I'm always so overly concerned about making everyone happy. And throughout the course of my journey, my whole career path that I'm now so passionately in love with is about helping people be happy. So it's just
interesting.
the side of the same coin, but it did take a lot of shift in perspective and really understanding how to apply the tools that I was learning myself.
Yeah, but I like the distinction of what you're doing now to make people be happy because without knowing it inside out, the idea is you're giving people like me, making us aware of joy and how we can actually access joy, not just for like a small modicum. We actually can grow joy and live with joy. And that, I guess, is a lot better than just pleasing people because they need something doing. And we might be of service, we're of service to them in a different way where probably they're not, I guess from their perspective, they might even understand joy. So you're giving them access to something wonderful.
Yeah. I mean, we all want love and acceptance. We're hardwired for that. We come here wanting that. And we have this erroneous idea that being all things to all people is going to get that for us, when really our relationships are all just going to be puzzle pieces, right? Overgivers are always going to attract overtakers. And then it just seems like, well, this is my position in the world. This is how I relate to others. And if all your relationships look like that, you don't know that there could be anything different. So it's about really becoming the observers of ourselves and what we're expecting. You spoke it beautifully when you said that you don't expect anything else really wonderful to happen because you've already had one hour of happiness in your day. So your expectation isn't really even that any other hours should happen. We're always creating our next reality with our expectations in the moment. It's the energy that we send out.
Yeah, no, 100%. So you, I guess, had that watershed moment where you realize actually I really want to access my own joy. And then it seems to me you went to a point where actually there's something fundamentally going on here where I feel connected to this and I really want to give other people access to this because I guess you realize that you're not the only one that's probably in this scenario. So your gift for everybody else, did you have a gift for you? Somebody that was able to kind of coach you and mentor you and support you?
I've had so many beautiful teachers that I am so grateful for. The book that you mentioned, the latest book, is filled with the gems that I've gleaned from these teachers. And that's really what gave me the inspiration and the calling to, like, I just want to join this team. There are people who understand this, and I want to join the team of people who are helping to make this more accessible to people. And it really does come down to a pretty basic, widespread spiritual principle of recognizing the soul self, recognizing that we all are this. I use Eckhart Tolle terminology in Joy School from a long time ago, the horizontal self, which is our name and job and occupation and family placement and our affiliations and beliefs. And this is our horizontal self. And we all have a vertical self, a part of us that is spirit, that is connected to source. Nobody's walking the planet without one, right? We all have a soul. And early on, I think in my, going way back in my youngest times, there was something in there that I would catch glimpses of. There was something that was like this deep well of love and compassion and safety that I could sort of retreat into when life around me was chaotic and frightening, which it was a lot in my growing up years. And I thought everybody had it. I thought that was just a normal thing. And then, of course, as we start talking about things and doing explorations, I realized, okay, other people don't really know what I'm talking about. Maybe I'm weird. Let me shut this down, whatever this is. And then my very, very first teacher, I'm going to call him a teacher, even though it was just a book, somehow Wayne Dyer's first book landed in my hands. I have no idea how it got there, but it was his very first book, Your Erroneous Zones. I was 14 years old. I didn't even get the wordplay with Your Erroneous Zones. And it was like everything lit up. There was this person on the planet who was expressing things that I had glimpsed and felt and believed, and that felt so true and right and just like connected to me. And I thought Wayne Dyer was the only person on the whole entire planet who had this understanding, and then gradually came to understand this was just representative of a whole body of spiritual work that I could start delving into. And I learned all about Buddhism and Vedic literature and the Tao Te Ching. And it just felt so comforting to me and so validating, and like I was seen, and it started opening something. And this was all, in my early adulthood. And I recognized joy for the first time. I was like, this is where joy is. And joy is inside me, and joy is inside every person. And by turning toward it and taking the steps and paying attention to it and fostering it, that joy just builds and builds and builds until it becomes your daily existence. You spoke earlier about, we look to what's going on out there to make us happy. And this is how we've all been conditioned. This is our earthly conditioning here, is that when I get that amount of money or that partner or that home or that thing that I want out there, then I can have joy inside. And it's such a backward equation, because those things are always shifting and changing, and we never are going to have all the things that we think that we need out there. So it keeps us constantly chasing joy and looking for joy and reaching for joy. And the energy that we're sending out from that baseline joy set point isn't going to create anything wonderful out there. We have to raise the frequency from the inside by tapping into that joy that is inherent to all of us. That's how we elevate the vibration. Then we're sending out a new energy, and all that stuff out there that we, we're so sure that we wanted, that just starts falling effortlessly into place. But it doesn't matter as much anymore, because we've already found the joy here. But I can't tell you how many times with my Joy Schoolers, and certainly with my own life, I've seen that bear out, where once we're able to raise our vibration, our attention and focus on our soul self, it just sends out a different vibration into the world. Our expectations change. We expect to have joy. We expect to have happy things happen, and the people, places, and opportunities just align themselves accordingly.
Sounds amazing. Almost sounds like once we recognize that and once we understand it, it almost becomes a superpower.
It does.
Because when I think about joy and the way that it's been framed to me over the years, it's almost just become a word that you have a loose understanding of, but you don't really practice it. You don't know how to practice it. Don't even think about practicing it. You kind of, to go back to what we spoke about earlier, just becomes like that little pocket situation that might happen periodically throughout the day or throughout the week. Or I guess some people might be listening to this, might be thinking that I've not really experienced any real joy for the last month because I've just been, I don't know, busy at work, busy with family stuff, or busy with both, or any number of different things can happen. So I love what you just described because there's almost, to my mind, a skill, a habit, a behavior that we're learning. So, Joy School, could you maybe speak a little bit about that, how that came about, and what you are doing with your clients and students that actually attend Joy School?
Yeah, it was a gradual progression. It actually started over 20 years ago. I had written a very popular children's book series that was rooted in helping parents convey the kinds of principles that I had come to believe in, the personal development principles of core worthiness. And I was invited to teach a lot about that. I was invited to schools to talk about creativity. Creativity is something that if you have sold a lot of books, you're an author, you must be creative. Come talk about creativity. This is sanctioned. There's government funding for it. You can always get in any door saying, I'm going to talk about creativity. But I got really sneaky about it because I have to talk about what I'm passionate about. So they would think I'm going to come in there and talk about creating your art and your poetry and your pictures. And I would talk about that for 5 minutes and say, but let's talk about what creativity really is. You are a creative machine. You're creating your friendships. You're creating your tomorrow. You're creating your next version of yourself. And there would be talks for kids and there would be talks for adults. And I just became known for having this weird spin on creativity that as it evolved more into my own trainings rather than speaking engagements, I just somehow the word joy always felt right to me because it's about a lot of things other than joy, but joy is the carrot, it's the result. Everybody knows they want more joy. I think the problem, everybody, if you ask them, would say, yeah, I want more joy, no matter how much they're currently having. But most people don't understand that it is within their ability to create that. Most of us think that we're at the mercy of circumstances to decide how much joy we
Yeah.
have. So yeah, it started way back then with that. And then I called it my joy trainings for a long time. I had when it was more physical, come to Joy School, it was called the Love Shack for a while, but it's always been the same thing that I just, have had such a passion about expressing and sharing.
No, I know, I love it. I love the idea. And for people that are listening to this now, that, or actually, maybe I'll rephrase the question. So we all have difficult moments in lives, any number of different things, difficult moments happen. And by living and practicing with joy, we able to utilize joy to remember that actually this will subside. There are going to be happier times around the corner. How does joy work when we're dealing with those challenging moments?
Yeah. We've been conditioned to have certain emotions that are good and wanted and other emotions that we feel are bad and unwanted. So when we're feeling gratitude or joy or happiness or delight, we're all about it. Yep, let's feel that. When we're feeling disappointment, frustration, grief, anger, we try to shut it down. We don't want to feel that. That's uncomfortable. That's ouchy. I'm not going to feel that. And what happens so often is we end up repressing a lot of our anger, repressing a lot of our negative emotions. And emotions, actually, it's a very well-known, established scientific thing now that I do not do justice explaining, but there are a lot of people who explain it really well, how all of our emotions create chemical cocktails in our bodies that get actually stored in our tissues. They get pocketed away. And the trick to releasing them is to what we call our feel to heal practices in Joy School. It's about allowing all of the emotions. We're not supposed to be happy 24/7. That wouldn't even serve us. Wouldn't even know we were happy if we were happy 24/7. But we can have joy all the time when we learn to fully embrace and have compassion around every emotion. Anger can be a beautifully empowering emotion that helps us to know our boundaries and helps us to do good in the world. Anger can be beautiful and have a lot of joy within our anger. Grief can open up pockets of love and poignancy and depth within us that we would never be able to access otherwise. Sometimes through grieving, we can reach these really beautiful places within ourselves. So it's about getting a different perspective and different appreciation
Okay.
of every natural human emotion that's available to us.
Okay. So that I love that. Everything you just said, I love. So the idea that we almost can, when we're frustrated, angry, the situations happen, we almost can use that or use joy to kind of, I'm not sure if reframe is the right word, but use it to kind of look for the positivity, the opportunity that we now have to, if we harness that anger, anxiety in a different way. We don't have to anchor it in a way that we just developed over the years, because that's what we saw our friends do, our parents do, we see it on TV. There's another way.
Yeah, most of our suffering from our negative emotions is due to our own self-judgment around them. So it's releasing that judgment when we're completely living this aligned life of integrity and just appreciating all of who we are and all of the spectrum of things that can happen, then those emotions don't have to drag us down and cause us
Okay.
to suffer. We can just be okay with them.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. I said I've loved it a number of times. I need to think of something else to say other than that.
Oh,
Um,
no, you keep saying that. That's good.
okay. I keep on saying if you allow me. So what immediately springs to mind? I'm sure everybody listening is thinking, this sounds fantastic. I definitely want to embrace joy as a daily practice, because that's what this particular episode is about. Not just joy, but trying to find a way that we can implement this into our daily life, so it almost becomes innate, almost becomes an instinctive thing. Do you have any advice for people, but for thinking, how can I do this? How can it become a daily thing?
I have so much advice, Paul.
So they can get the book as well. So we're going to leave a link to the book in the show notes, but there might be one or two things that you think actually this will get you going.
And this stuff that I'm going to say is so rooted in every traditional spiritual practice. It's recognition that almost all of our anxiety, almost all our distress, all our suffering is caused by our thoughts. And we humans identify with our thoughts. We take
Mm,
our thoughts really seriously. We think that our thoughts are us and are telling us what to do and who we are. And we do a lot in Joy School to learn about the thought process, where our thoughts come from, because our thoughts are always entering our consciousness through that framework that I talked about. That's a really unreliable framework of early formed beliefs that usually have no basis in
yeah.
reality. So we become the observer of that ticker tape of thoughts that's always running across our mind. Experts say we have between 70,000 and 80,000 thoughts a day. They say that 90% of them are the same thoughts we had yesterday and last week and last month. And the evidence says that most of them are negative thoughts. So the more we can practice distancing ourselves from the ticker tape, it becomes shockingly apparent how unnecessarily disruptive our thoughts are, how repetitive, how nonsensical in many cases. But it really requires some diligence in becoming the observer of your thoughts. And of course, meditation is a beautiful, beautiful tool for that. That's the most well-studied, well-researched, well-documented results around a practice for distancing yourselves from your thoughts. But there are all kinds of mindfulness
Mm,
tools, because a lot of people, when they hear the word meditation, I tried that, that's not for me,
mm,
or I don't have time for that. There's a Zen saying, if you're too busy you should meditate for half an hour a day. Unless you're too busy, then you should meditate an hour.
yeah.
So it's sort of that idea that we have a resistance to quieting our thoughts, because for a lot of us, there's almost a subconscious fear of what's behind there. We don't
Yeah.
want to sit in that quiet void, because for a lot of us, there's unworthiness issues. That's just rampant. It's just the way our society is right now, unfortunately. We all have some shame that we carry around consciously. Most people have a whole boatload of shame that they're unconsciously aware of. This is what we accumulate in our journey here because of the way our society is structured right now. And people are afraid to silence the thoughts and feel that and touch into that. But that is where we're able to release it, to reframe, to understand where that totally unwarranted shame is coming from, where all this self-judgment comes from. Releasing self-judgment, that is joy. All of us are wildly, uninhibitedly joyful once we can unburden ourselves of self-judgment.
Yeah, absolutely. Because I guess when we are self-judging ourselves, we're already compromised, hampered, and the stories that we repetitively are telling ourselves are compounding and compounding and compounding and compounding, which clearly is going to compromise the joy that we're seeking, and also the joy that we deserve. Because I'm a positive person, and I like to think that when we're put on this earth, that it's to find joy, to give joy, to have fun, to experience, to grow, to learn all these wonderful things. But like you said, with our thoughts, when we don't understand our thoughts and we let our thoughts lead us, clearly, particularly when the numbers that you just said, that we can have 90,000, sorry, 80, 70,000 thoughts a day, 90% of them are pretty much repetitive and maybe not accurate.
Yeah, our thoughts are not accurate. We self-identify so mistakenly with the thought patterns, because we're habitual creatures, and thoughts are habits. So, habits are not known for being particularly easy and quick to break, but they completely can be broken with some repetition and commitment.
Okay, so that's really, I guess, important, everybody listening now, to kind of really think about how they can question their thoughts, look at meditation. Is journaling something that people can do as well? Is that
Love journaling. Yeah, my Joy Schoolers journal regularly. You asked me about Joy School earlier. I don't think I got to the point that right now we're completely online. We meet 4 times a month, and we support one another in taking these principles into our lives. So part of our process when we get together is always, and we call it dialoguing with the vertical self. We want to open that channel to hear what our soul has to say, because we know what our silly brain has to say. We kind of get that out of the way so we can hear our soul desires, what our soul is craving, and our soul has so much knowledge for us. So journaling is a great tool for doing that. We definitely journal. Paying attention to our thoughts is like a primary foundational skill, but we want to pay attention to our feelings too, because our feelings are always coming from our thoughts. It's like we feel like a thing happens out there and it makes us feel a certain way, but it's never a direct effect like that. It's always a thing happens. We have a thought, a story about it, and that thought, that story is what makes us feel a certain way. So another practice I could share is, some of my Joy Schoolers will even set their phones to go off at intervals throughout the day to do this, but to check in several times a day and ask yourself, what am I feeling? And I like to train my Joy Schoolers to use terms of endearment with themselves. It's like, darling, what are you feeling? It's like you talking to you. It's actually your vertical soul self talking to your horizontal self. Darling, what are you feeling? And just allowing that, noticing the tendency to judge what we're feeling, or to say, I shouldn't be feeling that way, or, just allow it and honor it, whatever it is. And then the next question is, darling, what do you need? Because sometimes it's as simple as, I need to just disengage from this and be still and quiet for 5 minutes, or I need a glass of water, or I need to open a window and get some fresh air. Sometimes our needs are so just right there, but we don't take the time to honor ourselves and ask ourselves and care for ourselves in that way. And sometimes we identify a need that can't be met, but that's still a positive thing, because just owning and acknowledging this is a need that I have is what opens the portal to start seeing opportunities for that need to be met. While we're denying it and not looking at it, we're not going to see the opportunities to have it. So that's another skill, just a little basic starting point that your listeners could do, is just start a couple of times a day, 3 minimum. Just really touch in. Darling, what are you feeling? What do you need? And then an advanced step to that is, darling, what would you love? To really allow ourselves to imagine and think about, what would we love? What would I love? Until we identify it and make it even real in our consciousness, there's no chance for it to happen in our actual life.
Yeah, I'm gonna say it again. I love it.
Yay!
I had put a ban on myself, but you immediately lifted the ban, so I'm just using it. It just fits. It just fits. It's my natural, I guess, reaction to what you're saying to me.
I love that.
Wonderful, wonderful. So we're in sync. I guess what captures me around that is because our minds do run away from us, particularly in busy days when everybody's got so many different things going on. So I like the idea of checking in with ourselves at intervals during the day, just to really center us and get us to really think about what we want and what's important to us, and get us out of the kind of the unhelpful thoughts that we've grown to accept and to rely on, and we think they are fact. So I like that centered approach that you're doing. I guess you do, but also you're obviously teaching your guys at Joy School. What we'll do, we'll put a link to Joy School in the show notes so
Oh yeah,
people.
it's just my name.com, just Lisa
Okay,
McCourt.com.
okay, perfect, perfect. I was listening to one of your episodes of your podcast yesterday with I think it is Valerie. I'm not sure if it's Valerie Thompson, maybe, but Valerie somebody, and it was so triggered a thought. She spoke about. I guess you both spoke about the importance of words and language and how we can become more aware of using the right language and the right words. Could you maybe expand on that?
Oh my gosh, words are little energy bundles. If we had any idea, any understanding about how powerful the words that we use are, we would be so much more careful about them. And it's not just our spoken words, it's the words again with that voice in our
Mm,
heads. And so many of us have a super critical voice in our heads that tells us throughout the day what a dumbass we are, how
mm,
shitty we're doing, and how we're getting this wrong. And just noticing that can be so eye-opening and so expansive. I mentioned a prior exercise, but I have my joy scholars use terms of endearment. So many people can't even do that at first. One of my joy scholars said that every time she tried, it brought tears to her eyes. She couldn't call herself darling. She couldn't be kind to
mm,
herself because it was so counter to that habitual voice in our heads. And particularly words that come after I am are such powerful words. And when you make a mistake and you find yourself like, oh, I am such an idiot, or that is a self-fulfilling prophecy. You're
mm.
creating. Words are casting little spells in every utterance, every syllable, and that's what you're going to create. It feels artificial at first to pay attention to the words. That's why I try to pay attention to the thoughts first to get an intellectual understanding of how just erroneous and flimsy and crazy ass so many of our thoughts are, because then it helps for the words to not feel inauthentic. When we start with words, it just feels like we're telling stories to ourselves. It doesn't feel real. But as we build the understanding about how so much of our habitual thinking and self-talk is inherently false, then it helps gradually shift up the language that we use about ourselves and about what we're capable of and what we're creating.
It must be amazing for you, not just with Joy School, but obviously of the books that you've. I want to talk about the books and stuff and all the people, all the stuff that you've done, how you got into writing and stuff in a second. But it must be amazing for you when you see the impact of the work that you're doing with your clients and your students when they come, and potentially when they've arrived with you. Some of them might have some real life challenges which have been, I guess, exasperated by some of the things that we believe in our own thoughts and not checking in with ourselves. And we've got that compound effect of years and years and years and years and years of doing the same thing consistently. What's that been like for you when you've seen people's transformation?
It's my favorite thing. It's what keeps me
Mm,
doing what I do. I absolutely just love it. And it's not really me. It really is the power of group. The groups are always magical. And I used to do private coaching. I don't really do that. On rare exceptions, I do that. But I believe in the power of group. I believe that that's what makes it real. When you see, when we're bringing some principle into life that just feels like, I don't even understand how this applies. I don't think this one's for me or whatever. And then the next week, somebody has this amazing aha moment experience about how it worked out in their life. And then you see all the light bulbs going off everywhere else, like, oh, wait, now I understand it. It's the power of example and of shared intention. So I don't even take credit for it. I just sit back and watch the magic.
mm,
It's just really beautiful. It's it's inherent to us. This understanding of the truth of our being is inherent. We just have it so crusted over and so clouded with all of this accumulation that we all go through here. And to finally see that so much of our suffering, 90% of our suffering, is illusory, is stuff that we're making up. It's so freeing. And yes, there are times when we're grieving a loved one, or there's like a actual huge challenge that nobody can deny, that this is going to pull your joy down. It's going to be a challenge. We talk about in Joy School, we have discernment practices to see we're all meant to have challenges. That's part of the human package here, right? So many of us can look back and say, wow, that thing that I really hated when it was happening, I found that so challenging. That turned out to lead me to the best thing in my life. That turned out to be, so positive on the flip side of it. We've all had those experiences, and we've all had challenges that we recognize have deepened us as human beings and created us, to move forward on our evolving path. So there are challenges that we're meant to face, and most of us are creating a whole boatload of challenges that do not need to be there, that are just from the residual energy of these habitual crazy spirals that we get in. So we have discernment around, okay, is this a challenge that I really want to feel into and recognize my feelings and honor them and be there with all of my feeling and all of myself? Is it that kind of challenge, or is this one of these that doesn't need to be there at all? I created that with that habitual pattern, which I'm now taking control of, and it's going to be different now.
And that's interesting what you just said there around how we create our own challenges because of the way that we interpret thoughts, the way that we aren't able to reframe and to really think about the opportunity here, or how we can use a situation not negatively but positively. And again, compound, we have years of doing or thinking in a certain way. And I think what's refreshing about listening to you and all the work that you've done today and the work that you're doing is that you're really giving us access to joy, happiness, contentment, and awareness that we all want, and also hope, because life, particularly today, well, I was really keen to talk to you because today, 2023, 2024, life has become more challenged for a variety of different reasons. So I think it's more challenging to really find ourselves and identify ourselves because there's our peers, there's the poor behavior patterns that we're all exposed to, and there's also the internet and stuff. So we think that we have to live a certain way, which might be taking us away from ourselves, away from joy. So where I was excited about talking to you, because it's about that pureness, it's about really understanding what joy represents for us.
Oh, absolutely. And I mean, that's why I was excited to talk to you as well. My perfect failure. That's such a beautiful phrase that encompasses this. It's turning on its head. We all feel like failures. We all feel like failures for various reasons at various times in our lives to various degrees. And understanding that it's part of the perfection of it all, and just getting that level of acceptance that, we use the analogy in Joy School that we're all just pushing pieces around a game board. That's all we're doing here.
Yeah, I love that.
Human existence. Times we're going to go, get some gains in the game, and sometimes we get some losses in the game, but enjoying the playing of the game is how you win.
Yeah, 100%. And that's like unique. When we get to that point where we understand that I don't know, we can move parts around and there is opportunity here and we can think differently. We can challenge our thoughts. We don't have to buy into outdated thoughts that aren't even accurate. So there's a few things I'd like to cover. I'm conscious of your time. So something from your discussion with Valerie, you guys spoke about, potentially I haven't written this down correctly, but where energy flows, our attention goes. So I love that analogy, and I was keen to ask you if you wouldn't mind expanding on that.
I love this topic. It's so understood even scientifically today with quantum physics, and Einstein understood it, but it has not filtered into mainstream awareness or understanding. And it's that where attention goes, energy flows. We are all powerful creators. Whatever we're focusing on, they know this in quantum physics with, at a microscopic level, what you expect a cell to do, it will do. So it will do different things for different scientists, depending on their expectations. Wherever we're placing our attention, that's what we're feeding. Our energy is our most valuable. Our attention is our most valuable currency, because our attention is a stream of energy. So we're feeding energy into our problem when we just obsess about our problem all day without trying to pull back to, let me imagine what the solution would feel like. We don't have to know the solution. We don't have to have any idea how we're going to get to the solution. We just have to put more attention on what the solution would feel like, what the solution would provide. That lets the stairway appear that would take us from the problem to the solution. But that's not what we do. We think by putting negative energy focus on a problem, on an issue, that we're somehow helping it. And it's possible to make headway doing it that way, but it's not going to be smooth. It's not going to be quick. It's not going to have the same result as when we learn to be more putting our energy on what we want. We can look at our life and say, oh, I've created a mixed bag. I created that home that I always wanted. I created that partnership. I've got the job that pays the bills. But after I created it, goes over here. It goes over here to the side so I can focus on what I don't have, or focus on that problem. That's where we tend to put. Whereas if we focused on all the beautiful things that we have created, this is why gratitude is such a magical practice. If we could just be a little bit more deliberate and consistent with our gratitude, with celebrating our wins, celebrating all the things that we've achieved and done and have that and we enjoy. We're just celebrating nature, celebrating that the sun comes up every day. The more we do that, the more we're feeding the energetic signature of those kinds of things. And that vibration will go on and bring more of that kind of thing into our experience.
Okay.
Yeah.
So for people that are listening to this, and me, when we're having those moments where it becomes aware that we're really thinking and leaning into the problem too much, and that is only going to exasperate the situation. It's not going to fix, it's going to compound that situation, and rather than taking us away from that issue, it's going to really bring us centered to that challenge. So are things like gratitude, meditation, journaling, are those things that we can do to really support us and really bring us to where we want to go?
Yes. Yeah. When you recognize that, first, congratulate yourself for recognizing it, because that's huge right there. When you recognize, oh, I'm in one of those negative thought spirals. I'm not getting anything productive accomplished here. That's huge. And there are different games we play. One of our little catchphrases in Joy School is, what if this is actually okay? And it's just broadening that perspective, because our first gut is going to be no, of course, this is not okay. This is horrible. But what if it's actually okay that I'm probably going to lose my job? What if it's actually okay that this person is leaving my life? Or, and just to feel into that, just to see where might there be evidence that this is a positive thing. There are some spiritual principles that are really hard for some people to try on, but we try on the widespread spiritual principle that everything is a gift in strange wrapping paper. Everything has some gift for us, even if it's something that feels undesirable in the moment. And when we really get into a self-growth path, when we're really all about our evolving, it's always at least one gift of showing us something about ourselves. Everything that we create into our experience is a mirror. It's showing us on some level that we believed that this is what we deserved, or that we believed that this is what is our natural ability to create. So there's always at least that gift, that there's a mirror message for us there, just to show us where our creating frequency might need some healing, some work, something to elevate the vibration of creation in that particular aspect of life, whether it's money or romance or health or body or whatever it is. So looking for the gifts in it, not because we're going to give up trying to change it, but because our efforts and our ingenuity and our ideas for how to improve the situation are going to be so much better and more effective when we're coming from a more high vibration place, or at least closer to neutral. When we're there in the hole with the problem, there's nobody to throw the rope, right? You got to get up out of the hole of the problem and get to at least some level of neutrality around it. And then it just opens up so many more solutions.
I'm thinking of something else to say other than I love it. Maybe I love it. I've given up. I've given up.
Now I'm going to cry if you don't say it after I say something brilliant.
No, I think that, I like the idea of really challenging ourselves and thinking of a new way to think and behave when we experience those difficult moments, because we're not given these tools and exercises pretty much until we stumble across somebody like you, Lisa. So I think there's so many people I can think of. If I can just think of me, my peer group, people that I've worked with previously, people that jump on tubes, buses, and everybody navigating around the world. A lot of this stuff we're not even aware of, so we don't think about. So we think that we pretty much think that life as it exists now is pretty much entrenched into the cycle that we've adopted. So it's fantastic to know that once we've got the awareness, once we adopt certain techniques, we actually can break those poor habits that we've stumbled across and really find joy and really uplift ourselves. What I was keen to ask you is, you've got and had, and it's a continuous thing, a phenomenal writing career, and it will lead us nicely into your current book, Free Your Joy. So tell me about writing. When did this come into your life? And you've done things you've written your own stuff, you've ghostwritten, I think you've worked with Jack Canfield, and there's so many signature moments. So how did writing come into your life?
I don't know if you've heard the Malcolm Gladwell thing. I don't think he originated it, but he made it famous, that 10,000 hours that you give to anything. Well, so I think from a very, very, very early age, I discovered journaling as it was my sanity. It was my therapy. It was something that I did not feel safe to be myself in any other aspect of my life, but in my journals, I think it was where I really was able to access that core self that I've come to appreciate as soul spirit. I didn't know that's what it was early in my life, but it's where I could have that peace and that safety was in my journaling and my writing. So I think I literally just did it so much as a young person that when I was in high school and college, not every subject came super easily, but anything to do with writing, I knew that was an automatic A. My papers, whether it was in history or whatever, would always get A's. It was really just, I think I practiced it so much that writing always came really easily to me. So then when I had to go make an adult life, I worked in publishing because I thought that's probably the only thing I'm really cut out to do. And it just sort of went on from there.
Okay. So 10,000 hours, get that in. And I guess is it therapeutic? I wrote down to ask you, is writing therapeutic for you?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, it is. I don't do it as much today, just, for myself journaling as I used to, because I've just found other ways to connect with that core self. But I think it is for a lot of people an entry point to listening to your soul's wisdom. I've heard some experts say you want to always write longhand and, in a journal. I think that's because it slows you down. It slows down your thoughts. I can't say that I do that. I'm a keyboard typer, even when I journal, but for a lot of us, it's just, it makes us break that connection with the ticker tape, because the ticker tape is so fast. The thoughts are so fast that it slows us down enough to find those little moments between the thoughts. And that's where our soul's voice is, our soul's wisdom, which is often a very different voice than the voice of our busy mind.
Yeah.
It's surprising for people when they start to tap into and find that voice. It's like meeting this beautiful friend that's always been there that you've been ignoring your whole life.
Yeah. The busy mind's got a lot to answer for.
Mm-hmm.
The busy mind. So that this leads us nicely on to your book, Free Your Joy, which again I mentioned earlier. We can put a link in the show notes to Free Your Joy. So what can people expect from Free Your Joy?
I wrote it as a DIY because
Mm.
I love when people come to Joy School. I love supporting people in Joy School, but not everybody's going to come to Joy School. So it was really about like, how can I make this even more accessible? How can I get as much of what we do in Joy School into the hands of people who just want to spend $17.95 one time and they have all the right commitment and drive to go do it on their own. So it's meant to be read over the course of a full year.
Mm.
There are 12 keys representing 12 months. And within each key, there's discussion of the key and then 4 weekly practices. And the
Okay.
idea is you read the weekly practice, go put it into your life, bring it right into your day to day, then come back and do the next one. Because there was a point in my journey where I really had to look hard at the understanding that I was a glutton for information, for certification, for understanding, for those aha moments. It was just like I was so hungry, hungry, hungry to gather all this information, but I wasn't applying it. I wasn't applying
Okay.
it. So this is sort of my attempt to, it's really about the application. It's
Yeah.
not about learning it.
And as you're talking, I'm thinking about this episode, the title of this episode, Finding Joy in Daily Living. This book clearly does that because you've got joy, but you've got everything that leans into that, and there's practices you can do over 12 months, and you're going to learn. And I guess the beauty of it, I would imagine that once one 12 months is over, it doesn't stop. You can continue using it and reading
Exactly. That's
and
what it says at
practicing.
the end of the book. We're always cycling. I'm cycling for sure. The evolving is never done. It's not like you wake up one day and enlightenment, check. Just check that off my list now. I'm fully enlightened being. No, we're always peeling away the layers of the onion. So yeah, by the time you get through the 12-month process, it's perfect to start over in the beginning and everything will look entirely different at that point.
I also think as well, I think it's a perfect book to give because you want loved ones, serious work colleagues that are going through a difficult time who don't think that maybe joy is readily available. This is something that really can get them through difficult moments and get them to really think differently and really adopt the life that they think maybe isn't accessible at the moment.
Yeah, no, absolutely. It's great as a gift. It's great to do in partnership with
Yeah,
your
okay.
family, your friends, or as a book club.
Yeah.
I've been, making offers to Zoom into book club groups. I love the idea of just pods popping
Mm.
up everywhere, doing the practices together.
No, fantastic, fantastic. Lisa, I've monopolized your time. Hopefully we'll be able to do more discussions because yeah, my energy has raised and I've loved the subject and I'm keen to learn more. Obviously, I get your book, but love to have another conversation with you at some point. I do have one more question for you. I guess two questions. One, I think you've already answered. So for people to find you and to find out all things Lisa, where's the best place for people to find you?
It's all at my website, which is my name, LisamCCOURT.com.
Lovely. So I'll put that link on the show notes, so that's nice and easy for everybody. And my last question is, if you could invite 3 inspirational people to dinner, alive or past, who might you invite?
Yeah, I feel like I've already mentioned that Wayne Dyer was one of
Mm.
my earliest exposures. So I think I've always been so grateful for that I would have to include Wayne Dyer. Eckhart Tolle has definitely been my most influential. I did deep dive study of Eckhart Tolle's work many, many years ago. And I find that it's very encompassing of all of the ancient traditions that I had studied. So those would be 2 of my favorites. I'm going to just go a selfish route though, because there's so much that you can read with Wayne Dyer and so you can still learn from Eckhart. I'm still doing his workshops and books and teachings. I would be really personal and greedy about it. I would ask my biological dad, who I've never
Mm.
met and know nothing about. So there's always been a
Mm.
huge curiosity there. two of my deceased favorite people, which would be my grandmother and my mom. So I would invite those inspiring people. I have no idea if my dad was inspiring, but he probably was, and have my own little personal party. But I had to call out at least those two of my, what I call my best teachers were Wayne and Eckhart.
Okay, fabulous, fabulous. That would be a wonderful dinner, no doubt. And I'm sure it would be, not I'm sure, I know it'd be an inspired dinner as well. Lots of uplifting moments. Lisa, thank you so much. It's been a pure pleasure, pure delight. And yeah, so love what you're doing. And I will be, you've got a fan and from across the pond who will be following your work and learning from you. So thank you so much.
It has been such a pure delight for me as well. I will come back and play with you anytime, Paul. Thank you so much.
Okay, wonderful, wonderful. And thank you, everybody, for tuning into this episode of My Perfect Failure. We're always looking to grow the show. So please do share this episode far and wide, particularly if you know people that need more joy in their lives. And that's pretty much everybody. So really do share this episode far and wide. And your feedback is most welcome. We're keen to hear about the things you like and equally the things you don't like. So you can find me at paul@myperfectfailure.com, or you can find me via the feedback page on the website. So take care for now. Bye.
Thanks for listening to My Perfect Failure podcast. Be sure to visit www.myperfectfailure.com to join the conversation. Subscribe to our podcast on iTunes or Google Play. Look out for our next episode.